This is Paris Schutz, WTTW, Chicago Tonight, live at City Council, where momentarily Mayor Lori Lightfoot is expected to get up and give her first budget address of her mayoral term. And this comes as hordes of protesters from the Chicago Teachers Union and SEIU are marching, and they've surrounded City Council out here as the strike, the teachers' strike and support staff strike, enters day 5. So what we know about today's address is it is expected to announce a budget deficit of $836 million. She's expected to announce how she plans to close that deficit. We already know that she's proposing $200 million in savings from a debt restructuring. So she's going to trade in some debt to get some lower interest rates and going to use all those savings up front in this year to put that toward this year's budget gap. And then we also expect some TIF surplus revenue to be a part of this. She's proposed tripling taxes on solo rideshare drivers in the Loop and in some of the neighborhoods, and that's expected to bring in about $40 or $50 million. She's also proposed increasing taxes on food and drink at restaurants. That too, about $40, $50 million. So it doesn't get you the whole pot of $836 million. We're curious to see where she's going to come up with the rest of that money. Aldermen have been briefed on this budget plan. They've talked about efficiencies, debt restructuring. You know, these are the things that you hear normally in budget season. She also is expected to plead to Springfield for some help to the tune of about $100 or $150 million. Springfield, she would need them to vote to allow the city to collect a progressive real estate transfer tax, aka charge higher real estate transfer taxes on properties over $1 million. And if they don't vote to do that, then she's going to probably have to turn to property taxes. But she's expected to say today that that is the last thing she wants to do. She doesn't want to institute regressive taxes. She doesn't want to raise property taxes and put more of a burden on home and property owners than they are already facing right now. But that can only happen, she's going to say, if Springfield acts and allows the city to charge higher real estate transfer taxes for properties over $1 million. So we're still awaiting the mayor. You see the 50 aldermen here milling about, lots of observers in city council chambers. The second floor balcony is sold out. The first floor is sold out. Lots of financial analysts and watchdogs here. Curious to see what she's going to announce. And of course, this happens amid day 5 of the Chicago teachers and support staff strike. And there are hundreds of them that have marched throughout the Loop this morning. They are surrounding City Hall right now. If it gets really quiet in here, you might be able to hear them chanting outside as she gives her speech. So a lot of pressure on the mayor. And of course, after the budget speech is given, that sets off 2.5 months where City Council has hearings and there's lobbying and negotiating before they approve a final budget. And you can bet that the rideshare companies are going to employ lobbyists and advocate forcefully against those higher rideshare fees. Some of the aldermen that don't support Mayor Lightfoot are thinking that perhaps the budget is where the wheels could come off and she could see a roadblock of opposition to some of her priorities, because these are going to be really difficult votes. The rideshare might be difficult. Raising property taxes, if it comes to that, is going to be politically perilous. And there are aldermen that have not been fans of the mayor thus far that probably will not go along with her on this. And they might hope to bring some of their colleagues along with them. So we're going to give it over to the dais right now as the mayor is being announced, and she's going to come up and give her budget address, and we'll have a full recap right afterwards.
The council will come to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Laspada, Alderman Hopkins, Alderman Dow, Alderman King, Alderman Hairston, Alderman Sawyer, Alderman Mitchell, Alderman Harris, Alderman Beal, Alderman Salowski Garza, Alderman Thompson, Alderman Cardenas, Alderman Quinn, Alderman Burke, Alderman Lopez, Alderman Coleman, Alderman Moore, Alderman Curtis, Alderman O'Shea, Alderman Taylor, Alderman Brookins, Alderman Rodriguez, Alderman Tabarez, Alderman Scott, Alderman Citro Lopez, Alderman Maldonado, Alderman Burnett, Alderman Irvin, Alderman Talaferro, Alderman Raboyes, Alderman Cardona, Alderman Wagaspack, Alderman Rodriguez Sanchez, Alderman Austin, Alderman Ramirez Rosa, Alderman Villegas, Alderman Mitz, Alderman Sposato, Alderman Nugent, Alderman Vasquez, Alderman Napolitano, Alderman Riley, Alderman Smith, Alderman Tunney, Alderman Gardner, Alderman Kappelman, Alderman Martin, Alderman Osterman, Alderman Haddon, Alderman Silverstein. Clerk, Your Honor, we have a quorum present.
We will now begin public comment. I'm sorry, pardon me. We have a quorum. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be delivered by Alderman Sposato. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And please remain standing for the invocation, which will be delivered by Pastor Ira Ackery of Greater St. John Bible Church on the Great West Side.
Thank you for the honor. Can we bow our heads? Most holy and everlasting God, we come before your presence, asking for your spirit to intervene in this vitally important city council meeting. Lord, touch these elected officials who've been entrusted with the responsibility of reviewing and approving annual budgets. As we gather downtown in the third largest metropolis of America, in the presence of elected officials sitting at their marble desks in positions of power to ratify budgets, Lord, give them a heart for those in the margins. I pray that they remember the words of Scripture, woe to those who offend the least of these. It will be better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck. As this council prepares to hear our mayor's budget address, may they be reminded that a budget is a moral document that reflects the values and priorities of a city. Lord, other people have unions to represent them and advocates to speak for them, but I'm here as a divine lobbyist for the poor, funded by heaven. And I come condemning budgets that scapegoat the poor, fatten the rich, and demand sacrifice, mostly from those who can least afford it. I envision a city wherein the least, the last, and the lost will not be left out of budget priorities. I call on you, Lord, to convict the conscience of this council, the body that has the authority to assess fines and raise taxes with just one stroke of a pen. Lord, let this budget reflect justice and parity and combat social inequities. Let this be the last year that we see a budget that undergirds and expands on the ugly tale of two cities, the narrative and reality that painfully haunts us all. Lord, make us one here in Chicago. Let this be the last year that our city budget engages in reverse Robin Hood tactics of taking tip dollars from the poor and giving to the rich. Let this be the last year that $900 million of tax dollars go to the wealthy side of town while people are hurting and while disinvestment and displacement goes on the other side of town. May everyone be reminded that God, you are watching, and your eyes in every place beholding the evil and the good. These blessings I ask in the spirit of the trailblazers of justice who've gone on before us, upon whose shoulders I stand, Harriet Tubman, Jane Addams, Cesar Chavez, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Fannie Lou Hamer, and Mayor Harold Washington. I also signed this in the blood of the ward of the state, Laquan McDonald. And I seal this prayer in a name that's above all names, in the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Amen. 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 Amen.
And you want me to read this too?
Yes, you're going to read this, and then
This, and then that.
She's going to announce public comments. and
Okay.
then-
Clerk, Madam Clerk, please read the call of today's special meeting.
The following call for a special meeting of the City Council was filed in my office on Friday, October 18, 2019 at 3:41 p.m. Dear Ms. Valencia, I hereby call a special meeting of the City Council of Chicago to be convened at 10 a.m. on Wednesday, October 23, 2019 in the City Council Chamber in City Hall for the following purposes and for no other purposes whatsoever. 1, to receive the executive budget for the year between beginning January 1st, 2020 and ending December 31st, 2020, and the mayor's budget message relating thereto. And 2, to receive the amendment to the executive budget for the year beginning January 1st, 2019 and ending December 2019. And 3, receive and place on file a communication from the budget director regarding estimated levies. And 4, to consider a resolution calling for publication of the 2020 executive budget and setting the date, time, and place of the public hearing on that executive budget. Very truly yours, Lori E. Lightfoot, Mayor.
Now, at this time, we will have public comment.
The council will now begin the public comment period, which is limited to a maximum of 30 minutes. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. The time remaining for each speaker is shown on the clock on the wall. Any written comments that have been submitted will be available for aldermanic review at the city clerk's desk. The first speaker is Amazia Yazril.
Madam President. Thus says Yah of hosts, the Almighty of Israel. Listen now, John F. Hanna, Robert Campbell, and Kent and Ali Munzie. Yah of hosts has not sent you. You are hypocrites and blind guides. To the law and the testimony you speak not, because there is no light in you. In Revelation chapter 2, verse 2, name the first name that comes to mind that is a false apostle whose mouth is full of lies. You cannot because you are blind, spiritually blind. Paul writes in Galatians chapter 5, verse 14, for all the law is fulfilled in one word, even in this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. The Son of the living Yah, whose name is Yahoshua, says in Matthew chapter 22, verses 37 and 38, when asked which is the great commandment in the law. He says, thou shalt love Yah, the Almighty, with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and great commandment. In the words of King David, I have sinned against Yah. I, Amaziah, say to you, in the same manner of repentance, Yah will put away your sin and you will not die. Madam President.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you, ma'am.
Israel. The next speaker is Ms. Sandy Schneller.
Greetings, Madam Mayor and City Council. I know there are many things that are of concern right now in the city, but I urge you not to lose sight of the major concern that's going to be approaching us, and that's the census. census of the Black population here in the city of Chicago is rapidly declining, and the focus of the Black flight is of exigency. If we take a look at the past census in 2010, the Chicago population was 2.7 million people. That pulls 866,000 Blacks living in the city of Chicago at that time. Now, for 2020, the census is projected for the Black population to have been declined to 800,000. Now, let's break that down. That's 18 Black residents fleeing the city of Chicago every single day for a 10-year period. If we fast forward to the census of 2030, a significantly decline will occur, and we will drop to 665,000 Blacks living in the city of Chicago. Now, from the 2010 to the 2030 span period, 10-year period, that's 37 Blacks fleeing the city of Chicago every single day for 10 years. Think about it. Now, some of those things that's concerning for this flight: the slowness to decrease crime, the astronomical number of school closures, and the lack of economic mobility created through segregation that hinders upon upward mobility for Blacks in this city. You must give attention to this matter now before we become extinct in Chicago. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schneller. The next speaker is Mr. Joel Munoz.
Good morning. I will be speaking in Spanish first. Buenos días. Estoy hablando en español para elevar la importancia de la educación bilingüe, como lo hemos estado haciendo los miembros del Caucus Latino, Latinx, del Sindicato de Maestros. Ayer nuestros estudiantes nos reunimos en una biblioteca pública para escribirle cartas a la alcaldesa Lori Lightfoot. Esta es una carta de mi estudiante, su nombre es Carol Valdés. Hola, alcaldesa. Lo que yo quisiera es que usted nos ayudara en nuestras escuelas públicas de Chicago a tener más maestros, bibliotecarias, enfermeras, psicólogas, en todas las escuelas para que nos ayuden. Los maestros nos pueden ayudar con las materias, las bibliotecarias nos pueden ayudar con los libros, las enfermeras nos pueden ayudar cuando nos sentimos mal o cuando estamos enfermos. Las psicólogas nos ayudan cuando nos sentimos tristes o cuando nos molestan en la escuela. Espero que nos ayude en nuestras escuelas públicas de Chicago. Socorro Sandoval, quinto grado. Gracias. Carol Valdés. Okay, good morning, everyone, once more. My name is Joel Munoz, and I'm a teacher in the southwest side of the city. I spoke in Spanish first to elevate the importance of bilingual education, as we have been doing in the Latinx caucus of the CTU. Yesterday, my students and their families and I met at a public library, and we wrote letters to the mayor, Lori Lightfoot. And here's one of my students, Fidel Serrano. Here's what he had to say to you, Mayor. Dear Lori Lightfoot, there should be less students in classrooms. Lori Lightfoot, you have the power to change all of this. This affects our future and our learning. It will make it easier for our teachers and students to learn. We voted for you because we have high expectations from you, and you made promises. Keep your promises and sign the contract, and let us go to school in victory. Sincerely, Fidel Serrano.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I have more letters, but before I read this one, I just want to say about the Latinx caucus. It's led by a group of powerful women that couldn't be in here right now, so I'm speaking on their behalf. My wife, Mayra Manzo, is a member. My daughter is here with me today, so maybe I'll stop talking so she'll have a chance to read her letters too. Thank you, thank you.
Sir, if you have letters that you'd like to share with us, we'll have one of the members of our staff. I'd like to read what the students had to say.
Thank you. And I did try to share the letters with one of your staff members in the morning,
She's coming right now.
and I was denied because I tried to take a picture
She's coming right
of the
now. sir.
interaction. But thank you.
The next speaker is Mr. Rabbi Michael Ben Yosef.
Shalom Aleichem, peace and blessings to the world and those who stand in need of prayer. Greetings to Mayor Lightfoot and to the council. Yesterday was the national protest against national violence, police brutality. So Dad got to take a knee. Mayor Lightfoot, I'm here with regards to the 75 women of color murdered in our community. And I was here before a couple times before you, and I'm coming to you again about this issue. I'm concerned about the public safety of our women and the children. They have to be subject to having someone prey on them, a predator that's in our community. Your budget that you're going to propose today, I want you to recall the $95 million that's available to the police academy that's going to be put together. That money can be used to help and bring forth the justice for the families that's suffering and in grieving. They're grieving right now because they believe that the city is turning their backs on them. You're sitting here right now, Mayor Lightfoot, have the chance to change that, to show them that you care about the 74 women of color and their families that are mourning. Right now, in the Illinois State Police Department, your budget can unlock 6,000 cases that are pending. Your budget can provide the resources and the manpower to bring justice of closure to those backlog cases, to give the professionals and the detectives the tools they need to bring closure to these cases. But I want to ask a question. Will you do it? I don't think you will. Who's here are parents? I hope everyone's a parent. I'm a parent. If you were sitting in the seat of those parents, all of you, every last one of you, will be here every weekend at every police station, at every police board meeting, advocating for your loved one, Eddie Johnson. You know that. I'm glad to meet you, sir. I've seen many things about you, but I'm here on behalf of what you said, sir. There's no evidence of murders in our community. What we just saw, sir, where in Riverdale a murder happened, Rachel Carlich, body burned and thrown in the garbage can. That is the sign of a serial killer in our community. And until you and Mayor Lightfoot come to terms and serve the community, with this, we need you to do that. This is what's happening right now, and we need you all to come to terms with this.
Thank you, Rep. The next speaker is Ms. Juana Stamps.
Good morning, Mayor Lightfoot.
Good morning, ma'am.
City Council. I'm here to speak about the survey that you gave when you asked what would you do with the $1,000. I will put the $1,000, 200 in youth development, 200 in the LGBT community because they are suffering from being thrown away. I am a proud parent of a gay son, so I know what that struggle is like. I will also put $200 to $300 into mental health to begin to address the issues that these children are really suffering from, looking at dead bodies and looking at drug addicts nodding on the streets. It is not healthy, and it is destroying our children before they get a chance. Finally, I will put the last of that money into trades programs. If we begin to really have the trade programs come back into the communities, then I know that these young people will come off the streets. I know Mayor Lightfoot because I talk to these young people, and their question question is always, how are you asking us to come off the streets and you have nothing to give us in return? So that's what I would do with that $1,000. I have a little more time left. I want to speak about that CTU. Mayor Lightfoot, like I said from the very beginning, you inherited this mess. And I am appalled at the CTU that they will have the galls to strike when I know, because I can read, you have given them everything that they've asked for and some, and the last thing was something in writing. If I read it right, you gave them that too. So what I would say to you, to this whole city council, and to the residents of the city, I am a strong supporter of you. I am a part of this change, and I am so glad to be able to call you my leader, which is something I have not been able to do in the last 23 years since my mother, Marion Stamps, made her transition. Do your thing, Mayor Lightfoot, and I'm gonna back you up. Thank you.
The next speaker is Mr. Richard Zuplis.
Excellent. Hello, our city is broke. Please, no new taxes. Instead, can we please reduce the budget by 20% and create an ordinance that mandates a balanced budget? Doing so will eliminate our deficit and provide a surplus to begin paying off our debt. No matter how much we pay our teachers, the students will not receive a decent education unless their parents are involved. I have volunteered in the CPS classrooms for the last 12 years and have found that the only, and I mean only, difference between the students who are doing well and the students who are not doing so well has to do with the degree of involvement that the student is receiving at home. All it takes is 10 minutes of one-on-one reading, 10 minutes of one-on-one writing, 10 minutes of one-on-one arithmetic every single day starting at the age of 7 to 14. CBS recently reported that the average CPS teacher currently receives $71,000 a year, and that had the CTU accepted the mayor's original proposal, that the average teacher would then receive $100,000 per year in 5 years. Plus their 50% benefits package would total, on average, each teacher costing us $150,000 per year. They're not broke. Please take back your overly generous offer and present a contract that reduces the excessive pay of the highest paid teachers by placing a salary cap for all teachers. They can still be paid well, very well, and receive a cost of living increase in pay determined by the yearly rate of inflation. When the CTU refuses this offer, then bring in teachers who will accept this offer. Be fair. Pay the teachers well. I love the teachers, I do. And they will come. Just please be sure, no matter what, pay them a whole lot, I don't care. Just please be sure to underscore the importance of one-on-one involvement with our students. This is the most important part. Either by the parents, someone else at home, or if necessary, one-on-one involvement by interns and or other students at the schools. Please be sure that the new librarians are actually IT coordinators. And let's please do away with summer vacation. Year-round school will keep all of our minds sharp. Police Superintendent Andy Johnson has been leading a brilliant new program that could reduce the police budget while continuing to lower crime. I believe that if we continue and enhance this newer program, such that police officers become trained as a type of social worker, that our communities will learn to trust and believe that the police will come to the authentic aid of a disagreement, then all of our citizens will call 911 for assistance instead of the too often current strategy of calling a gun. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next speaker is Mr. Rashid Atalegbo Aro. Mr. Rashid Atalegbo Aro.
Good morning, everybody. With due respect to the American government, with due respect to the city of Chicago, I hereby obey protocol duly observed. I'm standing today as a Nigerian, 4 years old in the city of Chicago as a permanent resident. And my job as a security guard for almost 2 or 3 years has given me the opportunity to really understudy the challenges facing the 182 years old city of Chicago. And that's why I came up with so many initiatives to add value to the socio-economic development of this beautiful city. And hence, I came up with the initiative of Chicago Mayor Games, that the city of Chicago can celebrate Chicago Mayor Games as a brand to tackle so many numerous challenges facing the city, from unemployment to gun shooting violence, and so many other challenges facing the city. So that's why I came with an initiative to make sure that we have Olympic standard, an annual Olympic standard event that is tourism friendly. The project, in essence, shall add value to the economy in terms of some of the following benefits. Like, for example, the project Chicago Mayor Games shall be an annual tourism-friendly, sport-friendly, and multi-sport event that will attract over 200% returns on investment into the city purse through revenue-generating activities. And secondly, we have merchandising, vendorship, and so many other benefits. Number 3, through the media, we know that sport is media friendly. No media, sport. The proposed Olympic standard event shall attract over $1 billion in return on investment in the city purse through television pay-per-view. And also, in terms of job creation, shall create over 20,000 jobs across the 77 communities that will be well represented during the sports fiesta. Also, with due respect to your district mayor, in your inaugural speech, you mentioned 4 points of your administration. The key points: public safety, education, economic recovery, and also integrity. So, with due respect and in support of your 4-point agenda, we believe public safety is very important. Thereby, the project shall promote public safety statement by reducing gun shooting violence and killing of human beings by at least 90%.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. The next speaker is Ms. Ramona Smith.
Good morning, Mayor Lightfoot.
Good morning, ma'am.
I'm speaking on behalf of the disabled. I have one question and one statement. My question is, why do we have to wait so long for services? And my statement is, we shouldn't have to wait so long, 4 months, for services. Thank you. I'm behind you 100%, Mayor.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Smith. The next speaker is Mr. Vernon Jones.
Madam President, I'm yielding my time. There are more important topics that need to be covered. Thank you.
My name is Alicia Munoz. I go to Back of the Yards College Prep High School, and I'm gonna say letters about the CTU strike. Dear Mayor Lightfoot, when you first got elected, I was elated. An African American woman in the LGBT plus community as mayor, there wasn't much good happening in politics, but you were a small ray of hope. It seemed like a sign that things were going to get better. Sadly, it seems like I couldn't have been more wrong. As an 11th grader, I thought my biggest concern was going to be getting a good score on my SATs, and yet I find myself stressing over the fact that the mayor who I've been looking so up to is impeding my education by making teachers too busy fighting over things I see as things that should be a part of our basic rights as students. To ensure that every school has a nurse and social worker, it shouldn't be seen as a privilege that only happens in white high schools and movies, but as a necessity to secure a healthier school. Physical and mental health is not controllable, yet you have the power to control if someone is there to help us through it. We are counting on you as our mayor. Please sign the contract. Sincerely, Margie Vasquez, Eric Solorio Academy High School. Dear Mayor Lightfoot, my name is Alan Martinez. I'm 5 years old and I go to Sandoval Elementary School. I want to go back to school. I want to keep learning. Please sign the contract. Dear Mayor Lori Lightfoot, I would like to say that I, as a parent, feel disappointed because I really was expecting more from you as the mayor. We, as a community, are just asking for the best for our children. They need nurses and social workers every day at schools. I also would love less students in classes because it is better for teachers to teach and easier for students to learn. Our children need nurses every day because kids get sick quickly, and if they feel sick, instead of calling us parents to pick them up, they can be seen by a nurse and we won't have to leave work or miss it. Please sign the contract. Sincerely, Rosa Lule. Mayor Lightfoot, I don't like it when there's too many students in my class because I feel like my teacher doesn't have the time for everyone. Please sign the contract. Sincerely, Isabella Martinez, Socorro, Sandoval, 2nd grade. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Munoz. The next speaker is Mr. John Cantazara.
Good morning. Ms. Mayor, 2 months ago, you changed this public speaking section to make it a random draw. It almost became an analogy of modern society today, where you decided to punish hard work, where people would wake up 4 hours early to wait in line. Now, you changed the rules where they could show up 5 minutes before the draw, and everybody had an equal opportunity to speak. That did nothing under the guise of having different speakers speak. All it did was successfully silence certain voices that you'd want to hear on a regular basis by decreasing the odds that they would be at the microphone. So congratulations on that. This city is broke. You've said it time and time again, but yet you increase resources, financial and otherwise, to combat deportation on illegal immigrants in this city, as if that's such a great, noble cause. I'm not here to debate that cause. I'm here to make a simple point. You keep throwing more money when this city is broke at that problem. If you really believe it, it's really easy to do with other people's money, but if you really believe it, here's a challenge. Use all your money. Donate all your money. Clean out your bank accounts. Refinance your home. Max out your credit cards, and then take more loans and do it. Then you won't be a hypocrite. But you won't do that because you're blowing everybody else's money, whether they agree with you or not. It's ridiculous. You need to stay on point. Speaking of hypocrisy, this chamber has been rife with hypocrisy for decades, and I'll give you a couple examples. The IG just made a report that during the Laquan McDonald shooting, Superintendent Johnson basically okayed, like everybody else in a white shirt did, the shooting. Now his response was he never okayed it. Well, he also never had a public outcry against it either, now did he, as the chief of patrol. So he's just as culpable in his silence, and that's his explanation, as he would be if he signed off on it.
But yet, here he is sitting in judgment of 4 officers that he said were responsible for the same cover-up, but he's not holding himself accountable. It's a reoccurring theme. He doesn't hold himself accountable at all. Just last week, another bad decision. Drinking and driving, admittedly, the amount really doesn't matter because Department rules and regulations stipulate that being drunk off-duty is illegal in the police department, and the standard is half of what it is when you're driving behind the wheel of a car. It is .04. The state police, we will never know now, obviously, because unfortunately, a handful of policemen were put in a no-win situation that night. But it shows poor judgment, yet again, on the head of your police department. Not to mention the march on the expressway last July, yet again. Now, it's against public or department policy to do anything that's political. But yet here he is now making a political stance, saying publicly that he's not going to attend the president's speech at the Chiefs of Police meeting where he's the host chief. It's ridiculous. It's a political statement that's against department policy, and keep him in power.
Thank you, Mr. Cantizara. All speakers who have timely submitted witness slips for the public comment period have been heard.
Madam Clerk, communications.
A communication from Her Honor the Mayor to the Honorable the City Council of the City of Chicago. Ladies and gentlemen, I transmit herewith the proposed 2019 budget amendment, the proposed 2020 budget recommendations. Your favorable consideration of these items will be appreciated. Very truly yours, Lori E. Lightfoot, Mayor. Referred to the Committee on Budget and Government Operations. Also, a communication from Susie Park, Budget Director, containing the estimated 2019 amended and 2020 aggregate property tax levies, which is placed on file.
Good morning, members of the City Council and residents of the City of Chicago. Just over 5 months ago, our city came together in a transformative moment to begin building a city that was more transparent, more equitable, and prosperous for every community and every resident. Embarking on a new day of good governance that made our city work for families and communities, particularly in neighborhoods that have historically been disinvested. We affirm that we, as Chicagoans, are each other's neighbors, and we resolve to be each other's business. That means together, we resolve to do the hard work of transforming our city to meet the challenges of today, but also to stretch toward the horizon and the promise of each new day. Fundamental to this resolve is leaving no one behind. The budget that I am proposing for 2020 makes good on that resolve. A budget must be more than just a list of numbers. It should be an expression of our shared values and a progressive blueprint for our shared future. The 2020 budget I propose is transparent, inclusive, and crafted with unprecedented input from every corner of our city. But to be clear, this budget also reflects the reality that sacrifices are needed in the work that lies ahead. In my State of the City address this past August, I gave you my word that while Chicago faces a historic budget deficit, we will not close that gap on the backs of our working families. The voices from neighborhoods, our children and adults in need, we cannot pass them by. No matter the fiscal constraints we face, we will never waver from using our city's resources to help those most in need. This budget represents a down payment on that mission and the first step in a long journey that we will be taking together as one city. We now turn this budget over to the City Council, where it should be assessed and debated. And I invite members of the public, particularly our taxpayers, to continue weighing in, just as you have been, online, through emails, surveys, and through our budget town halls. A robust debate is what our democratic process is all about. I would like to give a special thanks to Budget Chairman Pat Dow, along with other aldermen who have given their input. And I want to thank this entire City Council for your partnership and collaboration over these last 5 months. Together, you represent voices across our city's 50 wards, each unique and different as their elected representatives. But those differences, whatever they may be, have not stopped you from rolling up your sleeves and joining with me and my administration on this journey to make meaningful and lasting change. Over these past 5 months, we have made significant financial reforms, such as outsourcing workers' compensation. We unanimously passed the most expansive Fair Workweek legislation in the nation, guaranteeing Chicago's workers the dignity and scheduling predictability that they deserve. And we did it the right way, by bringing everyone to the table to arrive at a sustainable solution. We also began the process of untangling our city's addiction to its regressive fines and fees, which traps countless Chicagoans in a cycle of debt and financial ruin, and as a result, keeps revenue off the table. Thanks again to our great clerk, Anna Valencia, for her leadership and partnership on these set of reforms. Now, we have more work to do. Every single one of these measures grew out of our central mission to build a greater city, to leave it stronger, fairer, and more prosperous than we found it. A city where kids who look like me, come from families like mine, don't have to beat the odds to get a great education, a good-paying job, raise a family, and pursue their dreams. As I outlined in my State of the City address, Chicago is staring down an $838 million budget gap, one of the largest gaps in our history. Getting that number down to zero required ingenuity, but more than that, it required hard choices across both expenditures and revenues. But this budget is more than a simple math problem. It's a value statement for what we prioritize and the kind of city that we want to be. The kind of city where strong, widespread, and dynamic middle class isn't shrinking, but actually growing again. Where every resident feels safe to walk in their neighborhood day or night. Where we all pay our fair share. Where a single parent can raise a family. Where entrepreneurs have access to resources to see their businesses thrive. And the kind of city that no longer grapples with racial wealth and life expectancy gaps that fester and deprive individuals of their God-given potential. We want Chicago to be a city for men like Siddiqui Emanuel, who provides healthy food options to Southside communities through his ownership of Marjani Foods. Siddiqui knows his business, but is the first to admit that he doesn't have the training to address some of the issues he encounters, not to mention the access to capital that would help his business grow. He knows his business would thrive with support in the form of skills training and neighborhood investment. And that's what this budget does, with investments in neighborhood development and small business training. We want Chicago to be a city for women like Hilda Frontenay, who has spent decades helping individuals in our Latinx community who are struggling with mental health and substance abuse issues actually get connected to vital services. This budget does that well with our investments in family services and an integrated, holistic mental health system. Both Siddiqui and Hilda, we should give our thanks to and applaud them because we are going to be providing services for them. Now, over the past few months, my staff and I have heard the concerns of countless residents like Siddiqui and Hilda. We've hosted 5 budget town hall meetings in communities across our city to hear Chicagoans' ideas about how to make our budget work for them. This included a youth budget town hall planned by members of our youth commission, some of whom are with us today. While different communities may have focused on different issues, what we heard across every community was a desire to see their tax dollars spent more equitably on great schools, healthy neighborhoods, well-paying jobs, and access to city resources. But what we also heard, every single place we went, was that residents don't want to see their property taxes increased. And who can blame them? That's why, before I go any further, I'm here to tell you that we didn't solve our $838 million budget gap with a large property tax increase in 2020. And folks, that's good news. Instead, our gap was closed through a combination of savings and efficiencies totaling $538 million, along with a number of carefully chosen revenue sources of $352 million. Our process began on the foundation of good governance, and as we heard from town halls, driven by the principle that our residents have the right to see how their hard-earned tax dollars are flowing back into their communities. Neighborhood investments, quality schools, safe streets, and much more. In crafting this budget, we also knew that our gap would only grow over the next several years, which meant we needed to cut wasteful spending and establish structural reforms now that will actually carry us into the future. And that's exactly what we did. I am proud to say that over 60% of our gap was closed by creating structural solutions. That means we not only created solutions that will help put our fiscal house in order this year, we created solutions to ensure that it stays in order for years to come. Our 2020 budget developed $150 million in savings and efficiencies through an approach known as zero-based budgeting, which means that we build it from the ground up, ensuring every line was actually essential to the core service mission of every department. We also saved $200 million through debt refinancing. By improving how we collect the debt we are owed, this budget also saves an additional $25 million by moving to a new system that ensures payments are expedited and more companies are brought into compliance. This budget restructures some of our city departments, ensuring taxpayers get the greatest value for their dollars while still receiving the highest quality service. And as we announced earlier this month, this budget reforms our public safety agencies by streamlining the administrative functions of our police, fire, and OEMC departments into a single agency, the new Office of Public Safety Administration, which will immediately save the city $2 million. But these are more than just cost-saving measures. By consolidating these units, we will be putting more than 160 police officers and fire personnel back on the streets where they can do the most good. That means more police doing work in your neighborhoods and your wards. Likewise, we will be merging the Department of Innovation and Technology with the Department of Fleet and Facility Management to create a new department that manages assets and information, strengthening the operations of both departments by combining their shared efficiencies, eliminating redundancies, all while reducing costs by approximately $1 million this coming year. And yet, while day-to-day operations of our technology infrastructure will be moved into one department, our Chief Information Officer and Chief Data Officer will then be placed in the Mayor's office to ensure technology policy is seamlessly incorporated with cutting-edge approaches in how government can work more efficiently and in greater partnership with Chicago's world-class tech community. In preparing our budget, we asked every department to take a hard look at their vacancies in order to find more efficient ways to streamline their workforce without significantly impacting services. And the result? Another $20 million in savings without layoffs. And this budget makes key reforms to Chicago's tax increment finance program, or what many people refer to as TIF. This year's additional surplus to the city is $31.4 million. But more than that, my team is undertaking a detailed review to reform TIF and align it more closely with our economic development needs and our values, accountability, and transparency. The days of the TIF slush fund are over. And as I said before, we committed to examining every possible efficiency and cost-cutting measure before we turn to our taxpayers for revenue. But when we did reach that point, the choices we made were done carefully and equitably. We know the sacrifices that everyone has already made, but we want you to know that we are taking these actions now so we don't have to take them in the future. So let me be clear. This budget includes $352 million in new revenue. But just as with our efficiencies, these new sources are rooted in progressive economic, financial, and social policy. They include reforming Chicago's real estate transfer tax, which is a tax that applies to anyone buying or selling a home. These reforms that we recommend will bring an additional $50 million this coming year, with an additional $100 million every year after that. This is exactly the kind of policy we want to be doing here. Policy that is fiscally sound, but also helps our communities grow. However, just as with our casino, we will need cooperation from Springfield in order to get this done. As everyone here knows, we have spoken at length to the governor and his team, legislative leaders and other lawmakers, business groups and other organizations about our need for Springfield to support a Chicago casino, as well as to develop a statewide pension reform package. I am proud to report that with this budget, for the first time in our city's history, we will have climbed the ramp to pay for our police and fire pensions at the level outside experts say we should be paying for them to ensure their long-term financial stability. And if we are able to work with Springfield to approve these two measures, Chicago will have all 4 of our pension funds reach that level and be on the path to structural balance by 2022. And that is good news. Now, I must caution, if we don't get the authorization that we need, we will be forced to make more painful choices when it comes to new sources of revenue. And we all know what those choices are. But I have full confidence that we will be able to work with our partners in the state capitol to keep that from happening, and I'm grateful for the members of the General Assembly who are here in the audience with us. Our 2020 budget includes $163 million in revenue from emergency services reimbursement. It also includes additional revenue that is part of our multi-front effort to address congestion from rideshare vehicles. Following our review of congestion data, we've determined an increase in our ground transportation tax on downtown rideshares on weekdays is warranted. This congestion tax would apply during the key hours between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. when the central business district faces its highest levels of gridlock. And if we are smart about this, making this small increase will not hurt our neighborhoods or impair accessibility for our disabled riders. And to be clear, I reject, and you should be deeply skeptical of the false narrative rideshare companies are spreading. The multi-millionaire owners of these companies have essentially had free reign in the city of Chicago. And if they cared so much about equity, as they say, they would cut their drivers in on a bigger share of the profits, improve their working conditions, and not pass the cost on to them. Our rideshare proposal will bring in an additional $40 million to our budget, while also lowering vehicle emissions and encouraging the use of more efficient modes of transportation like public transit. And our reforms will improve the playing field for our taxi drivers. That is a worthy cause and a fight worth having. We are also addressing the budget gap by increasing rates on our downtown parking meters and adding meters in the West Loop, which will bring in another $7 million. We will be calling on our food and dining industry through a modest increase in our restaurant tax from 0.25% to 0.5%, putting Chicago on par with neighboring suburbs. Now, though the increase may seem small, it is expected to generate an additional $20 million in the upcoming year. And we will increase the library portion of the property tax by $18 million to fully invest in our libraries and allow them to be open 7 days a week. So Sunday hours are coming. And as you all know, Chicago will be opening a new revenue stream from the legalization of recreational cannabis. But cannabis is more than just dollars. I want to stand this emerging industry up so that residents can consume it safely and ancillary businesses can thrive. But more than that, I want to use this new industry to uplift the economic life of neighborhoods and residents across our city, particularly those in our Black and brown communities that have borne the brunt of the war on drugs. Now, as hard as it was to find these efficiencies, make these cuts, and develop these new lines of revenue for working families, this is what was needed in order to close our budget gap and to do it with equity and integrity and without meaningfully raising property taxes. But as significant and challenging as those measures were, this budget still needed investments in our residents and our communities. And that begins with violence prevention. There's no greater calling for me as mayor and for us as a city than ensuring the safety of every home and every block in Chicago. Over these past 5 months, we've implemented a violence reduction strategy supported by bi-weekly regional coordination meetings and targeted collaborations across city agencies through public safety cabinet meetings. And while we have made progress, I will not be happy until we are the safest big city in America. And though we are not there yet, I am proud to report that we are moving in the right direction. From Memorial Day to Labor Day, murders fell by more than 20%. Meanwhile, shootings and murders are at their lowest level in 4 years, and robberies, burglaries, and vehicle thefts have sunk to a 20-year low. And that's thanks to the leadership of Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson, as well as CPD's rank and file. Let's be clear, our first responders all deserve our respect and admiration for the hard work that they do every day. But for all of our success, that is why we are building on the lessons that we've learned and developing a comprehensive community-based strategy for the coming year. Now, let's face it, nobody walks down the street saying that they feel 20% safer. With an investment of additional $9 million, we will be expanding street outreach through the support of additional community-based workers. We know that works, and we need to support that work and expand it. We will be creating a new pilot program based upon cognitive behavioral therapy to provide intensive support for youth and adults who are at highest risk, along with case management and support services, both of which will be combined with educational and employment opportunities. We will be building community capacity for trauma-informed responses to shootings. And we will continue to invest in our consent decree for the Chicago Police Department so our officers continue to receive the training they need. In addition to violence prevention, this budget also prioritizes homelessness, affordable housing, with new dollars to address the needs of Chicago's most vulnerable residents. First, we will increase funding for homelessness prevention by 36%, infusing $5 million into our flexible housing pools to support individuals who are frequent users of crisis systems, such as emergency rooms and shelters, and then connect them with supportive housing. Second, we will increase the number of affordable housing units for Chicago's lowest income renters by 19% by delivering an additional $5 million to the Low Income Housing Trust Fund. And let me say this to the developer community, whether for-profit or community-based, we need you to step up in partnership to help us meet this affordable housing crisis head on. This $10 million that we are investing, these investments are particularly focused on Chicago's young people experiencing homelessness, and alone, we believe, will reduce youth homelessness by 25%. Helping young people like Theo Hayes. Theo grew up on the south side of Chicago, the son of a single mother with 8 siblings. Theo struggled after high school when he was unable to find full-time employment. And after multiple brushes with the law, his family put him out. Theo was homeless for some time until eventually he made his way to La Casa Norte. And thanks to their support, he has been connected to employment and multiple housing opportunities. Theo's story speaks to the unique needs of our homeless youth and the opportunities we've all needed to recover from our mistakes. Since making his way to La Casa Norte, Theo will be starting the training program at Blue Sky Bakery on November 1st. And finally, Chicago will be making long-needed, long-overdue investments in our mental health infrastructure. We will be fixing our system by charting a new path to find new ways towards treating, identifying, and supporting our fellow Chicagoans struggling with mental illness. This is an issue, as you know, that impacts every Chicagoan. But far too many of Chicago's residents cannot get access to the treatment that they need. We have listened to patients, clinicians, and other mental health providers. What we heard, patients just don't want access. The patients don't just want access to quality, affordable, personalized care. We also heard that they don't know where to find it, don't know how to pay for it, and worry about the stigma associated with it. That has to change. This budget supports our plan, which will see tens of thousands more residents served through better access to care. And that care is integrated to treat the whole person. Today's mental health system includes over 100 publicly funded clinics providing mental health services to underserved communities, along with dozens more nonprofit mental health organizations. Our plan will integrate care across this entire system to create a comprehensive mental health infrastructure for our entire city. And how are we going to do it? By making multi-million-dollar investments in community organizations, creating a network of outpatient healthcare providers to ensure a better service to communities most impacted by violence. We will fund new community healthcare worker and crisis prevention teams, which will give particular focus to service gaps on our south and west sides. We will invest in our city's clinics to ensure that they are fully utilized, and we will improve accessibility to trauma-informed care, provide more comprehensive wraparound services, and we will make no more closures or cuts. Violence prevention, affordable housing, homelessness prevention, and mental health. Though these 4 areas may seem distinct, they're not. Each are connected and impact, inform, and reinforce the other. By investing in them as the ecosystem that they are, we are not only strengthening them, we are ensuring the challenges that come with them don't put additional strain on resources elsewhere. Our policies are our politics, not the other way around. As we come forward in the coming year, we will be making a variety of additional investments to support our city's working families and help them thrive. Investments that drive economic development in our neighborhoods and ensure a real path to economic growth, which taps the potential that exists in our city for years to come. Earlier this week, I was proud to stand on the West Side and announce one of our new initiatives, Invest Southwest. Marshaling investment from across our government, business and philanthropic sectors, and community groups into revitalizing the core commercial corridors in underinvested neighborhoods on our south and west sides. In total, through Invest Southwest, the city alone will channel more than $750 million over the next 3 years. And I want to... And I want to give particular praise to BMO Harris for their additional $10 million investment towards this initiative. Now, for the first time, all of these forces, business, philanthropy, folks on the ground, and stakeholders and communities will be working in concert, one with another, to build a Chicago that we all want to see and that we all know is possible. But this is only the beginning. We will be calling upon others to join this mission in our city, where economic opportunity is fully accessible for all of our residents, where our south and west side neighborhoods are growing again, and where Chicago's population gets back to 3 million. This is an effort different than anything that has come before. We're not doing a series of one-off, disconnected transactions for the community, but not with the community. We will also be investing $500,000 to support Chicago's local businesses through our small business centers and increasing their reach into city's neighborhoods, particularly those that have historically been underserved, by providing easy access to licensing and other critical information. And another proposal about which I am particularly proud is fast-tracking the time it takes for new businesses to get approval for their signs, down from as much as 8 months or longer to the day they get their business license, so their whole community knows on day one that they are open for business. I heard about the regulatory mess that businesses of all sizes face in merely getting signage. I want the business community to know that we heard you, and we are fixing this problem today. I want to note a few other important investments that are in this budget. We will continue to fight back against hate and xenophobia and trumpet our city's great immigrant past, present, and future. We are a city of nations, and proudly so. To ensure that we continue to be a real welcoming city, we will continue to invest in our legal protection fund, and we will continue to support our community navigators who embody the great values of our city. I stand with our immigrant and refugee communities because it is the only moral choice. We have community navigators who are out there every single day educating people about what their rights are, and we should be supporting them because they're doing the Lord's work in our immigrant and refugee communities. Now, our 2020 budget will also institute a path to a $15 minimum wage in Chicago that we will arrive at by 2021, because our working families can't wait till 2025 to earn enough to live on. And just as we did with the Fair Work Week legislation, we will roll out our $15 minimum wage the right way, through ongoing work with the City Council, business and labor, and community groups who have been at the table to create prosperity that not only leaves people strong, but alleviates poverty and will make us strong for years to come. We will be strengthening our fight against climate change this coming year by establishing an Office of the Environment. Rooted in the values of environmental justice, this new office will use our city's resources to ensure that our residents enjoy rights to clean air and clean water. And finally, this budget includes the new Utility Billing Relief Program, which is an unprecedented equity-focused effort that will reduce the water utility rates for homeowners with incomes 150% below the federal poverty level. This will dramatically cut the size of water bills for every other Chicagoan by creating monthly rather than twice a year water bills. And we and we will end water billing of accounts after the account has been shut off. We estimate that about 20,000 households are immediately eligible to participate in this targeted relief. For them, this program will cut water utility bills, end the threat of water shutoffs, stop referral to collection agencies, and after 1 year of participation, will eliminate past due water bills. Just as we ended driver's license suspensions and created new pathways to avoid bankruptcy for city sticker debt, these reforms are yet another piece of the fines and fees agenda that we are pursuing. Ensuring the hardest hit families have a pathway to compliance based on their ability to pay. This will not only offer relief to families struggling to choose between paying their water bill and other services, it will bring in revenue, which currently isn't happening because those residents simply don't have the ability to pay. We're doing this because it's good policy, but we're also doing this because it's the right thing to do. This budget was created to honor our responsibility as good stewards to our residents and taxpayers, as well as to make investments needed to support our whole city. I referred to this budget earlier as a value statement. But this budget is also a call to action. Since I became mayor, I have been overwhelmed by the level of hope and inspiration Chicagoans across our city have for transformative government. We routinely receive letters and inquiries from residents asking, how can I help? Now is the time for all of us to step forward and do our part to create a better Chicago that is truly a beacon of hope and opportunity for every resident, no matter their zip code. As I've said many times before, the challenges that we face were not created overnight, and they will not be solved overnight. But they will be solved, and we will solve them by working together. Friends, we need to remember that we are each other's neighbors. And before I finish, let me share a story that I think perfectly illustrates this point. A few weeks ago, I heard a story from a woman about an empty lot near 54th and South Prairie Avenue that for years had been covered in trash. She was riding the train one day, and something caused her to look down. And she saw something amazing. Someone had covered that lot with beautiful sunflowers. As the woman said, when she saw those flowers, she burst into tears. Because what she saw wasn't just a beautiful flower bed. What she saw was that someone cared. Someone loves me, she said. That someone happens to be here today. Guion Foreman, will you please stand? As some of you know, Guion is the president and CEO of Emerald South Economic Development Collaborative. And it was Guion who caused those beautiful sunflowers to be planted. That simple act of kindness, neighbor to neighbor, transformed that lot and brought so much joy to so many people. Being each other's business is more than just a nice sentiment. It's a light that will guide our path forward to a just and equitable future. We are standing on the threshold of a historic moment in our city. Now is the time for us to join together around our common mission and common purpose. Our goals are bold because they have to be. We will put everything on the line and fight with everything that we have to make sure that every Chicagoan in every neighborhood, regardless of zip code, regardless of race, color, or creed, has the opportunity to thrive. Today and all days to come. I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for the work and passion and commitment to make this day possible. And I am humbled every single day. Every single day that you've entrusted me with the stewardship of this great city we all call home. I can't wait for us to continue on this journey of transforming to everything in our city in the days and weeks ahead. Thank you so much. God bless you, and God bless the city of Chicago. Thank you. The chair recognizes Chairman Dow.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. As part of this call for this special meeting today, the clerk has a proposed resolution providing for the publication and setting the date and time of a necessary hearing, and I ask that the resolution be read.
Madam Clerk.
Whereas Mayor Lori E. Lightfoot on October 23, 2019 submitted to the City Council the executive budget of the City of Chicago for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2020, ending December 31, 2020. And whereas it's provided by law that at least one public hearing shall be held by the corporate authorities on the budget document not less than 1 week after publication thereof, in such manner as the corporate authorities may determine, and prior to final action thereon. And where it is further provided by law that the notice of such hearing shall be given by publication in a newspaper having general circulation in the City of Chicago not less than 1 week prior to the time of such hearing, now therefore be it resolved that the budget document for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2020, ending December 31st, 2020, as submitted by the Mayor of the City Council, be published in pamphlet form and made available for public inspection in the Office of the City Clerk in the Chicago Public Library no later than October 28, 2019. And be it further resolved that the public hearing on said budget document be held by the City Council at 11:30 a.m. on November 13, 2019 in the City Council Chamber in City Hall, and the City Clerk is hereby directed to cause a notice of such hearing to be published in a newspaper having general circulation in the City of Chicago at least 1 week prior to the time of such public hearing.
Suspend the rules for the immediate consideration of this resolution.
Hearing no objection, so ordered.
I now move to adopt the resolution by a voice vote.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Say no. The ayes have it and the resolution is passed. Chairman Dow?
A budget hearing schedule will be available after this meeting in the office of the Committee on the Budget and Government Operations in room 200. The overview and first budget hearing will begin next Monday morning, October 28th at 9 a.m. in the City Council chambers. Thank you.
The chair recognizes Alderman Mitchell for adjournment of the special meeting.
Madam President, there being no further business before this body, I move that we stand adjourned.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say no. The ayes have it. The meeting is adjourned.
So the mayor's first budget address, the 2020 budget proposal, is in the books. It received a standing ovation from her colleagues on the City Council floor. It calls for closing a gap of $838 million. And the mayor says that $537 million of that is coming from savings and efficiencies, things she's calling zero-based budgeting, vacancy reduction, fine reallocation, improved fiscal management. So a lot of buzzwords here. We have to dig into what exactly those mean. And then $352 million in new revenue. That includes $47 million from congestion rideshare taxes, specifically higher rideshare fees in the loop during business days, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Also, she wants the State General Assembly to authorize the city to institute a progressive real estate transfer tax. She thinks that'll get $50 million this year and $100 million more in subsequent years. But, of course, that's going to take a tough vote in Springfield. And she says if that doesn't happen, we all know the alternatives to that, a.k.a. a property tax. But she says this budget includes no big property tax hike for now. Now comes the drama with a series of budget meetings over the next 2 months as lawmakers hash out these numbers and come to a final budget document sometime before the end of the year. And we'll have full coverage of this throughout the day and tonight at 7 on Chicago Tonight. I'm Paris Schutz signing off.